Program features live coverage of an African safari and may include animal kills and carcasses. Viewer discretion is advised. Good afternoon, everybody. It's 34 degrees here, 95 degrees Fahrenheit in the middle of the Kruger National Park. This is Safari Live.
Ready.
Standing by.
Five, 4, 3, 2, 1. You are live, you are live.
Any sensible creature at this time of the day, of course, is sitting in the shade or reclining on a bough in a leafy tree like this one, Scotia brachypatella, or the weeping boerbean. That is the tree that I'm in now. You are most welcome. We're on the sunset safari, although by the time we finished our drive 3 hours hence, the sun will maybe just have set. It'll be 6 o'clock, and I think the temperature may have dropped by only 2 degrees. On the other vehicle, we have Jamie Patterson. She is being filmed by Brian and the Thumb, and they're making their weary way through the volcanic atmosphere, hopefully to some lions. On camera today with me is Jeandre. Hello, Jeandre.
Hello, James.
Yeah, it's lovely to have you with me. I see that you are wearing your car tire sandals. Very nice. What a pity they weren't lost in your expedition to Biffleshoek the other day. Anyway, that is a matter for another time. In the final control, Kirsten McLennan Smithereens is being helped ably by Louise Pavid. She is having an Energade bottle because it is so very hot today, 34 degrees like I said. Now, I'm going to attempt a graceful dismount from this tree, and then we're going to go to Cheetah Plains. Can you still hear me, Jeandre?
Yes.
Oh, good. Now, this morning, for those of you who were on drive, and if you weren't, well, you're to be thoroughly scolded for your tardiness. We saw some lions. Well, we didn't. I saw nothing. But Jamie saw the male lions. And, oh gosh, this is getting hairy, everybody. It's okay. I'm all right. And some elephant, a couple of warthogs. But for me, the most interesting thing, I think, was the marabou stork that we saw at Arathusa Dam, and that precipitated a discussion of the ugly five. Now, my ugly five... I can't get out of this tree. My ugly five turned out to be the marabou stork, the whip scorpion, the burrowing... what was it? The naked mole rat. That was the other one. I think the drunken tourist was another. And I forget exactly what the other one was. Anyway, one very kind viewer said that they thought I should be part of the ugly five, which I thought was a little bit nasty. But, you know, everyone is entitled to their own opinion. So, here we go. If you are part of the group of people that think I should be part of the ugly five, well...
A bit out of breath there.
I hope you don't mind being with a member of the ugly five. I'm a little bit out of breath, Jeandre. I was a bit scared there that I was going to come toppling out of the tree. But in the end, all was okay. Okay. Shall we go to Cheetah Plains? We're going to Cheetah Plains because it is so very hot and they've got lots of water there, and I'm hoping there'll be elephants there, cheetahs, lions, wild dogs, jackals, and of course an ostrich. Right, on we go. Please do talk to us during the course of the afternoon. Hashtag Safari Live on Twitter, or questions at wildearth.tv if you're on the email. And while we extricate ourselves from under the shade of this very leafy and beautiful Scotia tree, let's head across to Pyjamas Patterson and find out how her search for the lions is going.
Good afternoon and hello and welcome to the Sunset Safari. My name is not Pyjamas, although well, perhaps it will eventually start to morph into pyjamas. My name is Jamie, and the man behind the camera is Brian. What's the thumb today, Brian?
A sweaty thumb.
a sweaty thumb, and for it is indeed very, very warm this afternoon. James took the approach of hiding out under the shade of a scotia tree. Brian and myself have taken a different approach. We're not stopping. We're just going to keep moving and utilize the natural air conditioning unit of the vehicle. Although if we think we have it bad, the first animal that we're about to pop around the corner and see, he probably has it just that little bit worse. Oh, imagine being a waterbuck today, Brian. Ooh. Excuse me. Here we go. I've got shade here. You can't see the waterbuck, but I've got shade. Here we go. Starting off our boiling hot afternoon safari with one very fluffy antelope. Of course, told you that they are, well, I mentioned that they've got these very fluffy coats. It's not too warm for them, so they don't actually run the risk of overheating. The fibers of the coats are relatively hollow and quite spread out, which means that they don't overheat completely, because as you can imagine, it would be a very poor design indeed. It would be a design flaw, one might say, to have an antelope in the deepest African bush that has a very thick fur coat. So it's there to protect them from water when they spend a considerable period of time wandering about in rivers and the like, but they are adapted so that they do not overheat completely. So this afternoon we have returned to Hyena Road to see whether or not we will be able to track down and find the Nkuhuma Pride that have spent a great deal of time around this area. At some point they do need to go and find some more food, which could include a waterbuck. There's lots and lots of waterbuck on this particular stretch of road. A waterbuck, of course, is a particularly attractive animal. We were chatting this morning about the ugly five and the different ones that you could see, and Brian raised a very, very good point, and I think that we should ask Mr. Hendry about this as he goes along his sunset safari. And that is, if we have the ugly five, well, we most definitely need to have the beautiful five as well. But what would be included on your beautiful five list? We'll have to talk about animals here, although I think James was starting to chat about things like those sphinx cats and all kinds of different creatures. But if you had to talk about your beautiful five, what would it be? Brian says no big five, don't you, Brian?
Yep.
No leopards and lions, because that's cheating.
Well, they're part of the big five.
They're part of the big five. So no big five. I suppose rhino are lovely, but you wouldn't really put them on the most beautiful list. Well, maybe you would. I don't know. But James apparently, upon hearing this news from Kirsty, that we decided he should talk about the beautiful five as well, is pointing at himself. Okay, so we've got a spot on the list for Mr. Hendry. It's amazing he can squeeze in there with that, that approach. Somebody's going to say lilac-breasted roller, I guarantee it. And they are very beautiful. But do they merit a spot on the top 5 most beautiful creatures? Personally, I don't think the warthog belong on that list. So there you go. So, a discussion for this afternoon. What animals do you think should be on the beautiful 5? I think that James was busy talking about, as I said, things outside of Africa, like sphinx cats, although we do get them in South Africa, those bald, hairless creatures that are bizarre looking. I'm sure they're very sweet, and apparently they have lovable characters. I'm not sure I would own one. I'm not sure a waterbuck is pretty enough to go on the top 5 list, is it, Brian? Not quite. They are pretty, though. They are beautiful. The fluffy 5. Oh dear. Now we're starting all kinds of terrible lists. Next we're going to have the cute list and the angry list. The top 5 angry list. No. Okay, so let's stick with the top 5 most beautiful animals. The warthog. The waterbuck, I'm afraid, does not quite make the cut. For me, anyway. They're still pretty, don't get me wrong, but not top 5. Moving on. Although this is quite a nice shade spot. I think we're going to go and see what else we can find. I'm going to do a loop around Hyena Road and then towards Gowrie Cutline. Wrexham, those of you, of course, who are familiar with Wrexham, has suggested that he thinks they're somewhere close around to where the males were. That will be our mission for this afternoon. I can imagine that the lions will be somewhere deep, deep in the shade, which is what Brian and myself are going to plan to do. We're going to jump from shady spot to shady spot. In the meantime, James has found something that probably won't make the most beautiful 5, but is certainly a wonderful animal.
Elephants, everybody, and they are huddling in the shade. A great big herd of them standing beneath a torchwood tree. Is it a torchwood tree? Or is it a mangled jackalberry? I think it's a torchwood tree. And they're just sitting there trying to stay cool. And just watch their ears flapping to and fro as they cool the blood that comes from the heart to the ears and then into the brain, which keeps, of course, the nerve center of the animal very nice and cool. Now, while you look at them and contemplate the heat of this spring day, of course, the beautiful 5. Now, yeah, my beautiful 5 would consist, I believe, of the Nyala. I think the bush baby definitely be part of my big 5. Obviously, as a collective, the ladies of the final control would almost certainly be in my beautiful 5. The viewer who said that I should be part of the ugly 5 would be part of my beautiful 5. That's me turning the other cheek. And I need one more. I think I'm going to go with the Lowveld milkberry as the other part of the beautiful 5 and the Cape Robin. Jeandre, there's a very, very large warthog walking across the dam wall. He's just, I don't want to go any closer because I think he'll run over the other side. Can you see him there? There he is. A very large fellow. In fact, a very large Mrs. Warthog. She wouldn't be in the slightest but pleased to know that I'd mistaken her for a male. I wonder if we shouldn't go and have a little look at him. It just looks to be slightly alarmed by whatever is the other side of the dam wall. Let's do a brief sojourn up here before we head back to Cheetah Plains. Those elephants are huddled in the shade. They're not coming closer and they're south of the boundary, so we can't go any closer to them. So I think we'll leave them to rest up, and let's see if there isn't something that is causing the consternation of this very large warthog sow. Hello, Genevieve in New York. You want to know if I think my senses are heightened when I'm on drive as opposed to when I'm not on drive. Genevieve? I think they are. I'm not sure that they're physically any different, but I think certainly my brain tunes them in much more effectively when I'm on drive, or especially if I'm on a walk. If you're on a walk, you can't zone out ever. You've got to stay aware all the time. Whereas if you're on a drive, say, like we're about to she's very pregnant. Look how fat her belly is. When you're about to head to Cheetah Plains along that bit of road where there's no signal, you can zone out, I guess, if it's really hot like it is now. She's very indecisive, this warthog. But on a walk, you can't do that, Genevieve, and so you've got to remain completely focused. But yeah, I think my senses definitely are heightened, but that's just because it's you know they have to be. I think a lot of people, Genevieve, while we watch that warthog sow disappear over the edge of the dam wall, a lot of people are under the impression that people who do the job that we do here have got sort of special eyes and special ears and special noses, and we don't. We have, in some cases, in my case, I don't have very special eyes at all. But what we do have is just practice. It's practice using the senses that if you happen to live in New York, for example, you probably don't need, and indeed you probably don't want some of the time. Sometimes I'm sure that your nose in a big city is a bit of a disadvantage, makes things slightly unpleasant. Likewise, your ears, you'll probably not use them nearly as much as you would out here, because of course there's so much noise that your brain will automatically block quite a lot of it out, whereas here that's completely different. You want to pick up every single piece of information, the audible information that's going on around us, and the way to do that is just to practice it, and your brain eventually tells you, your brain eventually doesn't tell your ears anything, but it receives all of the information that goes into your ears as opposed to blocking some of it out. And I think anyone can learn to do that. It's just practice. My nose and my ears are definitely much more sensitive out here than when I'm in the city. Righty. Nothing majorly of consternation for the warthog there. And we'll just see if there hasn't been some kind of leopard crossing over the Umluamati drainage. I see no tracks. Ah, James Richard, you say you're looking forward to the trip to Cheetah Plains and you were rather hoping that it would be on my agenda. Well, there it is. I'm glad to be of service, James. And I hope that it will bear some fruit for us. Perhaps the Styx Pride. Perhaps some elephants at the waterhole, perhaps a cheetah, and perhaps an ostrich. Right, we're about to sort of drop a gear and speed off a bit quicker, so let's go and find out how Jamie's doing, and I'll see you on the plains.
While James races across to the plains, we are travelling to the west towards Gowrie Cutline, and my plan is to go and see. And I think I can actually take this little route. No, let's go round. Not be lazy, let me go round the firebreak route. My plan is to go and check where those cubs have been lying up for the last 2 or so days. Every time I think surely they must have moved on by now, they keep seeming to pop up back up there. So that's the plan. Oh, what was racing there? There's a Dacre. Phew. There it is. Little Dacre there. It is between the Tamburtis there. Got it. So, Liz has said wild dog, serval, bee-eater, kudu, and serval. Did I get that right? Wild dog, serval, bee-eater, kudu, giraffe. There we go. Well done, Liz. So that's your top 5. Beautiful. I nearly managed to catch that one out of the air. Just on the subject of beautiful things, it was one of the... It looks like a Charaxus butterfly. Or possibly one of the emperors. I didn't see it for long enough. Sorry, Brian. There's no way. I mean, I don't even know where it's gone now. But there was a butterfly. I nearly managed to just touch it with my hands. That would have been a nice one to add onto our beautiful 5. But I'm with Liz on... I agree with Liz about the kudu, although I'm not sure I would have put it on my... it's a difficult one. Kudu is a beautiful antelope. I like wild dog. Wild dog would go on my list, definitely. The painted wolf. Serval. You know what we haven't thought about, or I hadn't thought about up until now, was a caracal. Caracal are also tremendously beautiful. Are they more beautiful than the serval? I don't know. I've decided that, Brian, this is far too difficult. The ugly 5 is easier. And Dr. Debbie, you said that the caracal would be in your top 2, along with the kudu. So there you go. We've got 1 vote for the caracal and 2 for the kudu. I also really like bushbuck, but I think Nyala probably trump them in terms of beauty. Although kudu are also stunning. Can we just say spiral? No, we can't just say spiral-horned antelope, because eland are awe-inspiring, but they are not I wouldn't put them on the most beautiful list. Oh, hold on, everybody. Going into the lion's favorite drainage line, or the favorite river system. And with all of its secret nooks and crannies, you can understand why. It's the perfect hiding spot if you're a little lion and not quite ready to face the big wide world yet. Although our little lion cubs have pretty much been facing the big wide world on a regular basis. And they are beautiful, which is why we have excluded them from this particular list, because otherwise they'd be on everybody's. What's your top 5 list, Brian?
Tough one.
It is a very tough one.
I would say Sable.
Sable? Ooh, Sable's a very good one. Sable I didn't even think about.
I'm gonna have to think.
Yeah, I'm going to have to think too. I'm asking you because I can't think of mine. A sable is a magnificent antelope. I haven't seen one while I've been here. Of course, there was one seen for the first time in 18 years on the Djuma Dam camera a couple of months ago. So a sable is a very, very nice suggestion. Called sable because of that beautiful velvet black color that their coat has. With their backwards facing horns, they are truly stunning antelope. We need to go in here to check for these lions. I must say I'm going to be astounded if they're still here, but it would be a very, very nice surprise. Whoops. There we go. So sable. I'm trying to only think of African animals, because if I go further outside that, oh no, sphere, oh no, stay there, then it gets very complicated, because then you throw things like ocelots into the mix, and an ocelot is really truly beautiful, or a clouded leopard or something similar. So let's stick to African animals. And Gillian, Wisconsin, a brilliant and unique one coming from you. She has nominated a chameleon as the top of her list, since they are so beautifully designed and so incredibly delicate. I love that. I think that's a really, really nice idea. We mustn't forget about our reptile family. And they truly are stunning creatures, chameleons. With their one, my favorite thing about chameleon is their feet. They've got the most amazing feet. Those sort of toes that go like this. What about one of the snakes? We really do have some beautiful snakes. A puff adder is a gorgeous snake. The colors and the patterns of its scales. Come on, lions. Come on, lions. There's so much shade here. Why wouldn't you want to be here? We want to be here. Just check very, very carefully. So I really like that idea. A chameleon is a very good suggestion. I wonder if they're in this drainage line. Let's just go check a little bit round the corner, and then we'll do a closer examination on our way back through here and see if they're not in the drainage line itself. They might be. The thing is, in these sorts of days, whilst the drainage lines or the river systems, the big dips, do provide plenty of shade, it also means that the wind doesn't blow through because they're sheltered. So in turn, that means that you don't get the cooling breeze effect. So quite a few animals actually move up onto the shade on the edges of the drainage lines rather than lying in the middle of a drainage line, so that they get the cooling effect of the breeze as well. A very warm welcome once again to RJ on the subject of our lions, and while we go searching through here, RJ wanted to know whether or not lions ever get kicked out of their pride, and if they do, will they ever be able to go and join another one? Male lions always get kicked out of their pride. So once they reach sexual maturity, 3.5 odd years old, depending on whether or not they've got some coalition members with them, but invariably a male lion will be forced out of his pride by either the females or, there's a good chance, by his father or fathers. It's always a bit impossible to tell. I'm afraid to say our lions, if they are here, are very well hidden. It does occasionally happen with females as well. It's quite unusual. Most of the time a female will be in her pride for the rest of her life. Sometimes a pride does split. Often during a takeover, and then doesn't necessarily come back together again. And then what will also sometimes happen is if a female has a problem with fertility, which is unusual with lions, they're quite fertile creatures, but if a female has a problem with fertility, often the males pick up on it and they pay her less and less attention, and the females seem to realize that there's something strange about her as well, and then she might separate from the rest of the group. I saw it happen once, or at least I saw the after effects of that happen once with a female that was completely separate from her pride. She then went on to actually fall pregnant and have cubs, but she never was accepted back into her original pride. In terms of being accepted by other lions, very, very rarely. Lions, are you here somewhere? Sure, it's so thick in here we could have driven past them. I don't want to jump out and give them a fright with the cubs. They'll go dashing off and we won't see them again. I think for once they are not hidden here. Or perhaps they are and they're just in the... What you got, Brian? Tree. Okay, cool. You got that intent focused look for a moment. I thought perhaps you'd spotted them. No, I don't think so. I'm sure they're in... I'm not sure they're in here, actually. That's not true. I'm not sure they're in here at all. The cubs probably are. We haven't found any tracks for them coming out, and they weren't seen on the dam camera yesterday. The lionesses were seen last night on the dam camera, but the little cubs were not, which means they probably are somewhere in this vicinity, in this region. The tracks haven't popped out of this block. The females were busy hunting last night, so they've been all over the show. Sorry, just to go back, in terms of being accepted into a pride, another pride, it's very unusual, and chances are that lion was already in some way known to that pride. And it's happened with some males before, with young males before, where they've gone and they've just been tolerated and accepted by the pride that they've come upon. And it's usually explained by the fact that they are in some way related, perhaps a half-brother or something similar. Nope. No lions. And unfortunately this is the end of the road here. This is where the off-road tracks end from the last 2 days of sightings here. Just checking to see if there's any lion tracks.
Station Shopping Show here on the southern side of Pindam. So I'm really heading off. I'm not going to stay with you.
Copy that, thank you. I've come down to around to the eastern side of that Gari Cutline drainage. No sign of the Ngala here, unless they're deep in the Shkoba itself.
Sorry, Jamie. I've just checked there. There's no sign either. I'm going to check where the London Mafazi on the other side of quarantine. There's a lot of condos going towards Rebecca. Maybe on the tickets there, there might be Lala Fazi, Mafazi.
Okay, copy that. Thanks, Rixon. I'm going to make my way that side. I'll give you a hand.
Thank you.
I'm just chatting to Rixon about what our... Ouch. I misjudged that one. What our plans are for this afternoon. And he said he doesn't think they're here anymore. He thinks they're more towards Rebecca's Road. So he's going to go and check there. We're going to go and help him out. So while we navigate our way out of here, let's jump back on board with James, who has made it to the plains. I'm sure there's a rhyme in here somewhere, but let's go and have a look.
I nearly had my glasses on, everybody, and that would have been very rude, but we were just saying today that maybe we're going to have to wear our glasses because it's so very bright. Now, we had some consternation over this tree the other day. I took it home, I didn't know what it was. Brent identified it as a African plane tree. Judy H said she couldn't find evidence of any such tree, and we couldn't find a decent botanical name for it. So I thought I'd pick a bigger piece of it, and you can then have a look. The distinguishing marker, I think, other than the leaves, which are, well, they're pretty obviously normal, is these sort of packed plants, and they look like what we call a protea, and the protea is the country's national flower, but that's what they look like. So anybody who can add to the mystery of the African plane tree, that would be great. I'm pretty sure Brent's right, because he described the flower almost exactly. So there it is, and maybe you can help us find the botanical name. Right, on we go. Now, obviously on a day like today, the first port of call is going to be to go towards some waterholes. I must just also state that if I'm looking slightly off colour, it is not because I'm about to vomit from seasickness. It is because I have put some very fancy homemade sunscreen on, provided by Rebecca. Apparently normal sunscreen isn't actually very good for you at all. It contains nasty chemicals, and so this thing is made of coconut oil and various other things, but the problem with it is that it makes you look like Casper the Friendly Ghost, and so I need to rub it in very carefully before drive, otherwise I look like, well, a zombie basically. Turn this down a bit. Everybody's now getting mobile, which means there is a vast noise in my ear. Hello, Anne. Yes, you say, do we ever see otters? We do see otters, you know. We see something called the Cape Clawless otter, and we find them in the Sand River. I've definitely seen them there. I've seen their tracks often. They're not common, but they are around. So in any of the perennial rivers of the Kruger National Park, you could easily find a Cape Clawless otter. I've lost the tree, Jeandre. Everybody needs it as a reference, you see. There we are. You can show them again. Very nice. The leaf is fairly indistinct, like I say. It's what they call simple and opposite, which means that it's just about the same as all the other trees out here. Haven't tasted much. Starting to irritate me now. I hope you've had a good look. One doesn't want to be irritated on a hot day, does one, Jeandre? How do you feel about tracking a butterfly? Because it's hanging at the moment in a tree, immobile. Oh, now it's flown. It's behind this tree. It was quite a spectacular fellow. It was one of the Chiraxes. I'm not sure which one. I shall find a Chiraxes to show you. While we drive, we shall keep going in order to keep the gentle breeze blowing over our faces. Ah. Now, Justin, you're wondering about the largest moth found on the reserve as I try and find this flutterby for you. The largest moth, Justin, is probably a Mapani moth or a lunar moth. Well, length to length, it'll be a lunar moth, which looks like... Jeandre, don't try this at home. See, you can only drive and read a book if you're very experienced like me. There. The lunar moth is number 4. That's him there. And he is probably, how tall is he? 120 millimeter wingspan. So that's 12 centimeters, which is just shy of 6 inches. Just shy of 6 inches of wingspan. That's the lunar moth. So that's the biggest one. Then what I think that butterfly was, everybody, was... Hold on, Jeandre. A foxy charaxes. I think it was one of those rather spectacular looking things. Isn't that nice? The top right hand corner there. The foxy charaxes. So that's what I think it was, but unfortunately I was unable to find it before it flew away. Well, I was unable to show Jeandre where it was before it flew away. Right, we're now approaching the road that will lead us to the water of a triple in a row 3 waters. Or 3 in a row pan, I think is the shortened word, or shortened term. And we'll see what's there. Just round the corner. So foxy charaxes and lunar moth. Nobody has come up with any answers for my tree. Judy H, don't let me down. You've been so marvellously good at telling me all the things I don't know. Some impala there. Quite a few impala. In fact, sorry, Jeandre, I'm just going to go back a bit here, because before we get to the water, there's a rather impressive skeleton. In fact, almost an entire one. I'm sort of tempted to try and steal it for the tent. It's quite big, isn't it? There it is, everybody. There, a buffalo died. It was killed, I think, by lions some time back. But that would be rather good to hang from the roof of the tent, don't you think, Johnny? Like a whale, sort of like a whale skeleton in a museum, but a buffalo. And his jaw is intact. Most of his ribs are intact. This really would be quite a good one. Unfortunately, he is an Nkoro buffalo, and so I can't really walk on there and drape him over the bonnet and then drive home with him. Somebody would smell a rat, as it were. Or more to the point, they would not smell the carcass. Right, that's enough of that death genre. Let's go to something living, hopefully, at the pan. There were some impala in there, but they're Nkoro impala, so we won't look at them. Hello Dana, you're a new viewer and it's lovely to hear from you, and thank you for asking a question. Just next time please tell us where you're from. It's always nice to know where you're from. Dana, you say, do we have problems with poachers on the reserve? From time to time, yes we do. There are incursions. Mostly it's people who are very hungry and looking for something to feed their families with. So there is a 60% unemployment rate in much of the communities that live on the western fringes of the Kruger Park. And for those people, obviously, there is a food resource in here that they're not allowed access to. And so some people will try and come in and collect animals for the pot. That then has a negative knock-on effect, of course, because the way they catch animals is to set snares, which is a very painful process for any animal to go through, and it also catches indiscriminately. So it catches the predators, and it catches things like elephants' trunks. We've seen a number of elephants here that are missing their trunks. And so, yes, in short, there is a small poaching issue, but it's pretty much under control, and it doesn't happen much in this particular area. Further north, where the policing isn't quite so good, then the problem is that much higher. But that is to be expected. As I've said before, game reserves throughout Africa are highly conflicted places. And they're conflicted places, Dana, because, of course, they weren't necessary until the advent of the colonialists and the settlers came in, and we started blasting away with our guns. You know, the local harvesting of animals here was entirely sustainable. And it was only through the advent of sort of white settlers and their guns that it became necessary to proclaim game reserves, and that excluded a whole lot of people who'd been using this natural resource for many centuries. So it is quite a conflicted space, that of conservation. I cannot actually believe that there is nothing here whatsoever. There's an impala. I was expecting to find a great gathering of animals. No. One blacksmith lapwing. Right, well, nothing there. Let's go across to Jamie. She's got a very beautiful antelope to show you. I will go to the next waterhole.
Such a beautiful animal that it made it to Lys's top 5 of most beautiful creatures out here, excluding Big 5 in brackets. The kudu. And you can see what Lys means when you look at them, with their enormous ears and their beautiful bright big eyes. They are absolutely, truly stunning antelope. And Teresa, of course, was the viewer that told me the story about how the white stripes on a kudu and nyala and a bushbuck, the stripes and the spots, were put there by the gods reaching down because kudu and nyala's legs were too skinny to hold them up. And so the creators reached down and picked them up, and the white spots were left wherever the god's hands had touched them. It's one of my favorite local legends. I'd never heard that one before I started working at Safari Live, and it is definitely one of my absolute favorite stories. It's just got such a beautiful ring to it, particularly with nyala and their white dots. And there we go. And as always with kudu, the longer you look, the more you see. There's probably a herd of about at least 5 or 6 of them here, but most of them are on the other side of the dam wall, which means us having to move out of the shade that we're in, which we're not quite prepared to do just yet. You can see the ox pickers racing around at the back, getting to those sensitive spots where the ticks love to gather. Oh, nearly got a smack in the face with the tail there. You've got to be alert when you're an oxpecker. You never know when that fast-moving tail is going to sweep aside and smack you. The oxpeckers, of course, for newer viewers, are the birds that sit on the backs of the antelope and the buffalo and help them remove the ticks from their skin, from their fur. And off he goes. There is also, while I've been sitting here, I've noticed there's a few vervet monkeys running about. And this particular group that lives around Voyatella Dam, and we do know it's the same group, this particular group has always been a little bit skittish around vehicles, but I'm going to try and get us a bit closer. I'm hoping that most of them are feeding off the fruit of that big jackalberry tree on the dam wall. Let's go and investigate and see. I also decided I'd pop my head round here because last night on the Sunset Safari in Chile, the female leopard that we've only recently started seeing came through to the pan for a drink, which suggests to us the possibility that she has a kill somewhere in this region, which is why she's been hanging around over the last 3 or so days. What's today? Tuesday. Yes, so Sunday afternoon was when she was last seen. So I thought I'd poke my nose over the wall and just see whether or not she's around. Haven't heard any alarm calls from the monkeys. They, of course, are always one of the first giveaways when there's a leopard about. We'll investigate. I'm sure she does. I'm sure that she has a kill somewhere down here on the other side of the dam wall. Just in this thick drainage line area. Where could she be hiding? Oh, cute Brian. Sorry, before we go into the shade, here's a tiny little Inyala drinking there. So cute. I will move us to the shade in a moment. Look at the little one. So tiny. Afternoon, no updates yet. I haven't been back to check on those 3 Midodangala. Just Love on Twin Dams Road. Cute, man. There you go, on James's list of top 5 most beautiful animal. Sorry, Ephraim's trying to talk to me now. Negative, Ephraim. There's no sign of them around Gary Cutline, and Rexon is trying to track them down around Rebecca's Road. Look how tiny you are. So as I said, on James's list of top 5 most beautiful animals, and you can see why. Okay, let's go forward a little bit into the shade. See if there's any monkeys still remaining in the top of this tree. Monkeys? Nope. I think they've all scampered off. It's interesting because you'd expect these ones to be relatively used to vehicles and peoples. There's always constant vehicle traffic. But I don't see any one of them left. I think they must all have moved off. Promise you I saw monkeys here. You did, right, Brian?
I did indeed.
You did, okay, so I'm not completely crazy. The mysterious vanishing monkeys. That's, aha, I see you. I see you, little things. Hiding there in the shade. Here we go. There are monkeys there. They're also keeping themselves busy, even though it's very hot for them. It's not too bad. The smaller the animal, the easier it is for them to cope with the heat. Just easier to lose heat. And there they go, slowly disappearing off into the distance. And now the more I sit and look, the more I start to see them every now and again just poking their heads out of the leaves and the branches. Most of them, unfortunately, have disappeared off already. I don't see any little ones, but Ruth, you were wondering about whether or not monkeys give birth on the ground or in trees. To the best of my knowledge, almost all monkey births are in trees. And baboon births as well. As far as I know, it's quite rare for a primate of the sort of the smaller primates to actually give birth on the ground. So Ruth, yeah, it'll be up in the trees. It's amazing to think that they actually managed to do that. It seems to be the way, though. The same goes for bush babies. So our smaller form of primates, our smaller nocturnal primates, they also give birth in trees. Except I'm not 100% sure about the greater galago or the greater bush baby. I'm not sure if they often spend a little bit more time on the ground, so there's a possibility that the females give birth down there, but I don't think so. I think it makes the most sense for the babies or the mothers when they're at their most vulnerable to be up in a tree. Unfortunately, as much as I really love looking at monkeys, they've all vanished. Fortunately for us, James has had a little bit more luck and he's got some horses in pajamas for you.
Some kudu, everybody, and they're standing in the remnants of what was known as Cheetah Plains Pan, which is now Cheetah Plains Wallow. I'm not sure why they've stopped pumping this pan, but they've had a good drink and they're now wandering off through the clearings. There was one ruminating in the shade there on the left-hand side. That's him there, Jeandre. She's stooding up. Stoodin is not a word. She has stood up, is what I meant to say. The sun is boiling my brain. And that is because we are not used to the heat just yet. And then also, it's a rather pretty scene that. I mean, despite the fact that the light, I can't speak. The light is about as harsh as a welding torch. It's still pretty. And there was also a zebra just across the way there. Can you see the zebra, Jeandre? He's just hiding behind a small apple leaf bushel. Now, if you are... Yes, zoom in on that dead thing in the middle there. There, you got him. Down a bit, you'll see him. There he is. You see him. There we are, everybody. The striped pajama pony. Hiding behind the bush, stalking the kudu, waiting to see if they get any closer. Then he'll make his move and grab one for his dinner. Hello, Brian in Toronto. You want to know if the drought has caused the death of any animals. That is a good question, but it's interesting because in this particular area, no, I don't believe it has. In the Greater Kruger National Park, absolutely, there have been a number of hippopotamus that have suffered. They, unsurprisingly, are some of the first to suffer when the water sources dry out and there's nothing left for them to drink or live in. So, yes, the hippos have suffered. But also, in the reserves that are not open systems like this one, for example, there has been quite a lot of die-off and quite a lot of effect. And certainly the most obvious example would be the reserves near Hoedspruit, which I've mentioned before. They're all closed off from the Kruger, so they're sort of self-contained. But because they're self-contained and the animal movements are that much more limited and the balance is kept by human beings, and let that be a lesson to us all, rather than the actual natural system keeping the balance of how many of each individual species there is, what happens then is that you do get this imbalance, and the warthogs, for example, they look absolutely horrendous. They're looking ribby, and they're going to die. I've no doubt there are going to be many warthog deaths. I imagine probably the buffalo, similar sort of situation. So it really does depend where you are. But around here, I would say no, nothing has died of the drought yet. The elephants look, for me, looking the most ropey of the animals that we get here, and I'm astounded I haven't managed to find one elephant seeking out some water here. Our next port of call is going to be to go down south there into the clearings. There's a nice waterhole there on the boundary with Mala, and we'll see if there isn't an elephant there, perhaps, or a cheetah. Right, shall we carry on, Jeandre? Hello, Aaron in New Zealand. I'm just trying to work out what time it must be for you, Aaron, in New Zealand. I'm imagining about 9 hours ahead of us. Am I right? 7 or 8, says Jeandre. And I'm going to say 9. Please just send through a tweet saying 9, regardless if it is or isn't. You want to know which animals are which antelope are most closely related to kudu? Well, there are a number here. We get 2. One being the bushbuck, the other being the nyala. They belong to the same genus. And then, sorry, this is very loud in my ear. And then there is the eland, which is part of the same family, which we don't get here. And there is the mountain nyala, which we don't get here. And then the bongo is another obvious one. All of those things found north of our borders. Well, the eland you can, in theory, find here. But I've never seen an eland in the Sabi Sand. Many, of course, in the Mara, where I have just been. But those are the main ones. The only 2 here, the bushbuck and the nyala. There's a crowned lapwing. Kirsten said something sardonic there, but mercifully I missed it. Ooh. So the lovely call of the white-crested helmet shrike. Not the best crowned lapwing sighting in the world, is it, Jeandre? No, let's move on. There we are. Go again with that, Kirsten, please. It sounds very interesting, but I missed it. Buffalo. The deciduous London plane tree is what Betty says it is. So thank you very much for that. That was the tree, the mystery tree. And the genus again was what, Kirsten? Platanus. Now, Platanus was the genus. I can't hear quite properly there. Thank you very much for that, Betty. This is a very interesting arrangement of buffalo because it is strictly speaking a breeding herd. You see that, Jeandre? One bull in the front, one cow behind, a young bull next to her, another bull behind, sort of a semi-sub-adult bull behind that, looking at us now on the left-hand side of the screen, and then another cow deeply aged behind that. This is a very sorry herd of buffalo. They are not looking good. They look very unhealthy. They've all got their hips showing. So maybe I spoke a little bit too soon about who was showing the effects of the drought and who isn't. But I don't think these chaps look very good at all. I think they look quite rough. And it's very odd that a breeding herd would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 animals. It's extremely unusual. It's so unusual to the point of being, I mean, it's bizarre. I've never seen it before. So I wonder, normally what you tell people, of course, is that the herds get bigger during the dry season because the food and the water become more concentrated. But I wonder if when things get even more dry and more dispersed, I wonder if those big herds don't then break up into much smaller groups so that it's just a little bit easier to find what little there is left to eat. Do you see how ribby they look? They really don't look very good at all, poor chaps. They'll be hoping desperately for some rain before 2 months' time. Jeandre, when did you say you thought we'd get rain? 18th of September. When? October. I said October the 15th, I think. Shame the one at the back there seems to have a bit of a slack jaw. I said the 10th of October, apparently. Thank you for that, Kirsten. Shame. See the one at the back there? His bottom lip is either hanging open or perhaps an injury from being attacked by lions. It's quite possible that it's been kind of pulled down. It's rather interesting, that is. I haven't seen buffalo on Juma that look like that, but for one bull who hangs around at the Vuurtele Pan. So that's a little bit sad. Let's continue down the way. But that is the way of things in a drought. Many zebra tracks here. Can't tell you where the elephants have gone. It really is rather strange. Jeandre described this area as Chobe yesterday. Elephants everywhere they looked. Mobile today. They were heading towards Kruger yesterday, says Jeandre. That's that way. Now, Pyjamas Patterson has headed across to the cats from this morning. The cats from this morning are doing what cats do. in the heat of the day, and that is, well, not a great deal.
Not a great deal indeed. Our Birmingham boys from this morning are fast asleep. They are so warm that one of them's actually almost attempted to climb into the guarri bush in order to find some shade. He really has. I mean, he's got his head right inside it. The other is using the one as a footrest. A great place to pop its feet. There you go. You can see what I mean about the one with its head hidden in the guarri bush with a paw resting on one of the branches. A most comfortable spot. And they have not shifted one little bit from... No, that's not true. They've moved with the shade since this morning. Obviously, as the shade has shifted around, they've got too hot and got up and moved around. This morning, for those of you who missed the sunrise safari, they were apparently, just before we found them, they had been chasing buffalo. There's the third one, all the way at the back there. And they were chasing buffalo around. They do have very, very empty bellies. Sorry, I'm just listening to the Game Drive comms, the Game Drive radio, so that I can get updates on what's happening.
And also this Gonzo from afar, they headed towards the area, but I want to check here from the market where the general direction from.
Okay. This is just listening to Rex chat about the fact he found some tracks of leopard going towards the Gallagher waterhole. It could well be in Chila, but I couldn't hear exactly whether or not he found tracks for a female or a male. So for those of you who missed the sunrise safari, just to chat a little bit about that, obviously we had the Birmingham boys on the move, heading straight towards Simbabili. Luckily for us, they decided to flop down in the shade not more than 200 meters or so from our boundary. And there they have found the most comfortable of spots. The fourth Birmingham boy, we have since found out, is on Buffelshoek, mating with one of the Nkuhumas. Aubrey, sorry, just to let you know, I'm on lock with the three Birminghams. They're still in the same position. Sorry, everybody. Just making sure that Aubrey doesn't arrive and get a serious surprise when I'm here. He did say that he was on his way. Everybody's going out now. The temperatures are slowly starting to cool down this afternoon, which means that the guests are ready to go out and about on their safaris. The first thing they're going to be doing is coming to have a look at these lions. I don't think we're going to spend the entire time with them. I just wanted to pop in, check that they were still around, and then what we'll do is, depending on how things go, we'll probably return here at the end of the sunset safari, when there's a better chance of them getting up and doing some things. That's the Birmingham boy with the skinny tail. And since our lions are not going to be up to terribly much, and we know what wonderful value the fantastic animals of Cheetah Plains are, let's go across to James and find out how he's doing.
Pipit! The pipit, everybody. A striped pipit. I just like to say the word pipit as many times as possible. Pipit. It's a striped pipit, and it is wandering across the clearings. It is not alone in these clearings, everybody. It is, in fact, accompanied by not a striped pipit, a grassveld or African pipit. I've done that twice before, mistaken the two. In grassveld or African pipit, not striped. and a Steenbok. Thank you for the Steenbok, Jeandre. Very nice. The Steenbok is not alone either. It has a mate somewhere not too far from here in Mala. It seems to have gone there, doesn't it, Jeandre? And is this the same Steenbok that you saw yesterday, Jeandre?
No, this is the female.
This is the female.
Okay.
Ah.
But probably the wife.
But probably the wife. Jeandre's expertise in Steenbok behavior goes to being able to tell who is married to whom. Very good, Jeandre. And it is now, of course, eating the little bits of greenery that are left in this once pumped pan. I think it was pumped. Either that or it's there might be a natural well coming out here. But it was wet until quite recently. There was quite a lot of water in it, and I saw some giraffe drinking from here. Then way in the background, some kudu's, some male kudu's. They look very magnificent indeed. But all around you can see that the landscape and the sky is still rather bleached. And as the sun eventually begins to make its way towards the west, so hopefully this light will soften. Jeandre, you can't keep coming back to me when I have my leg out of the car. It's slightly unprofessional, I feel. Not to mention skinny.
It's not that bad.
Right. What we're going to do now is head towards the Kruger boundary and then head north up the eastern boundary, and we'll see if we can't find Nkanieni or something like that over there. The main purpose of that little jaunt is going to be to get some cooling air on our faces and hopefully some shade. Well, there's not a lot of shade around here. Oh, bird up there, it's a Wahlberg's eagle, Jeandre. Hello, Lane and Michelle. You say that the Steenbok is part of your beautiful five. Well, I think that's very pleasing. I think he's also rather a special animal. I'm not sure he'd make my beautiful five, maybe my elegant five. Now, how do we identify that as a Wahlberg's eagle, everybody? You might ask yourself, good grief, that man James, he's able to identify a Wahlberg's eagle at an astonishing distance. And actually, it's very simple. It's simply that it has a very thin tail. You noticed that? Very thin tail. All the others, even the tawny eagle, which looks almost identical if you see it flying at that distance, the tail is not thin like that. If you see my hands together, the tail will be slightly fanned like that. But the Wahlberg's eagle is almost parallel, or the two sides are completely parallel, and hardly ever fans more than that, whereas a tawny will fan to that if it's turning in the wind. That is how you identify the Wahlberg's eagle at a great distance. Now also up here is a very angry and upset lilac-breasted roller, which is sitting here in a sort of huff going whack, 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 whack. It's over here. Oh, don't fly away. Now just watch it carefully. Let's see if it does its display. This could be quite cool. Watch this. Watch, watch, watch. So it could be quite cool. Whoa, whoa, we go. Brilliant. Did you get it, Jeandre? Did you get him? Stop getting consumption and watch the roller. Let's see if he does it again. How cool was that? Very cool. Jeandre, did you actually film it doing its thing, or half of it? Well, well done. And then you became sick, did you? Yes, you started getting tuberculosis. That is very irritating. Never mind. Let's go further on. That's really actually quite cool. They don't normally do it at that distance. They normally do it much higher up. One chance we get. Poor old Jeandre has a coughing fit. There he goes again. And there's two of them going now. This one's going to go. Watch this one in front of us. Yes, here he goes. Just keep on him. Don't worry about the others. There he goes! You see that rolling? That is so cool. Well done, Jeandre. Not easy. Very difficult, that. Alrighty. Let's continue on our way. That's very cool. That's why they're called rollers, everyone. For that very rolling reason. There is a yellow-billed hornbill eating, I suspect, termites. Hello, Andrew. My commiserations to you. You say you've just found Safari Live on YouTube and it is now distracting you from your work. Andrew, no work can be as important as a safari, as appreciating the wilderness, so please don't worry about that. Secondly, it is the best thing to have if you work in an office, for example. I believe that the world would be a better place where there less, were there to be less corporate meetings. And so what I suggest you do is load the YouTube stream onto your mobile device, go into your next meeting and just watch it. And just nod sort of every so often when somebody says something to you. And that will make work that much more tolerable. Now, you're going to hear a bit of noise. That's me slapping flies. Hornbill. Now, I'm trying to see what he's eating. I'm pretty sure it's little termites that have been digging in amongst the buffalo and kudu dung there, or wildebeest also. And again, I'm just astounded by the amazing dexterity and accuracy with which that bill is able to be landed on the ground. If you are, slightly underwhelmed by what you're seeing here, what I suggest you do is next time you go past some roadworks, steal one of the traffic cones and go home and then attach it to the front of your face. Then put a small target on the ground in front of you, get down on all fours and see how accurately you can hit that small target with the traffic cone attached to the front of your face. And I assure you, you will end up with either a very sore face, because you will hit it much harder than you think you're going to, and you will also miss your target. I wouldn't suggest you do it with any sort of close personal friends or family. They will think you've gone stark raving out of your head. Maybe you could have a party, actually, a hornbill party, where everyone has to arrive with a cone attached to the front of their faces, and you're only allowed to eat through your cone. What do you think, John? Do you think that's a brilliant idea? I think that's a very good idea. I think that's an excellent idea. Come to my hornbill party, bring your own traffic cone. In all seriousness, it really is quite impressive that it's able to do that. James Richard, no, you're absolutely correct. You say you take it that the new sunscreen that was given to me by Rebecca doesn't in fact act as an insect repellent. No, in fact it would seem to act as an insect attractant. Just one great joy of the winter is the lack of flies. Oh, and I had a dreadful incident yesterday evening, everybody. If you're squeamish, you might want to turn the sound down slightly. I lay down on my bed, lay my weary head on the pillow, and a fly landed on my forehead. So I hit it. And it was a very sluggish fly, and it fell onto the ground, and I was very satisfied that I had killed it. And then, as one does, I sort of scratched my nose before I shut my eyes for the final time, and the smell that assailed my nostrils from the tips of my fingers that had made contact with the fly was quite disgusting. And this is because Stefan has found us a very effective fly trap that is made of some kind of, I don't know what kind of disgusting, stinking stuff it is. But that fly had managed to escape from the fly trap and come and sat on my face. And I think that's why it was so sluggish. Anyway, that was my fly story for the evening. You may now turn your sound back up again for the more squeamish of you. It's not out of the top drawer of stories, that is it? No. I've told better ones. Yes. I wonder if... Have we got the... Do we have the crickets yet? We have downloaded some cricket sounds, everybody. We're on the far eastern boundary now, everybody, where the blinding volcanic heat has made everything scuttle off under some kind of cover. Hello RJ, in California. You say the area all looks the same. Do we ever get lost? Not anymore, RJ, because yes, while it does look the same on first sight, it doesn't once you've been driving around for a while. Each piece of the reserve, especially, you know, we drive around these areas so often that no, they don't. It's almost impossible to get lost on the little piece of land that we drive on. But if you go to a new area and perhaps you drive on a much bigger area, so for example, if you were to be driving on Mala Mala permanently, which is about 18,000 hectares, you could definitely get lost there, especially at night if you were driving off-road, let's say, or if you happen to be driving on a very cloudy day and you were driving off-road quite a lot, and you can suddenly find yourself totally disorientated, and then you can get a bit lost. But if you drive in a straight direction or in one direction for any length of time, you're going to hit a road, and normally you'll recognize the road. Have you seen Nkanyeni anywhere, Jeandre? No, I haven't either. What I think we'll do now, everyone, is go back towards those water holes and see if the elephants haven't emerged. And if they haven't, well, we might just make our way back to Juma and see if Karula hasn't come back across. I'm quite astounded by the absence of heartbeat over here. Oh, and Mandy, you want to know if anyone's seen Shadow's cub, and the answer, I'm afraid, is no, I don't think so. I've certainly heard nothing about Shadow's cub at all, so I don't know where she is, little Zara. I had tracks of Tingana and I think probably Shadow on Arathusa this morning, but there certainly wasn't any cub with them. So I don't know what's going to happen there. Well, I think I'm pretty sure we know what's going to happen there, and it's not very nice. I don't see any elephants at the pan there. So we'll go back around, I think, to 3 in a row pan. What is that over there? It's a log. How exciting. I am amazed by the lack of heartbeat in this clearing. Let's turn down this way. There's a starling, thank goodness, Jeandre. I think it's a starling. Yeah, a roller. A flying roller. No, doesn't want to see us either. It's times like this, Jeandre, that one must stop and talk about a tree. Just wait, sorry. I just saw a whole lot of dust coming up there. Did you see that? Yeah, let's carry on going that way. At 1 o'clock there, yes. Joe in Australia, I'm afraid I missed your question. Oh, you say, did we ever see wattled lapwings? We don't. Wattled lapwings not usual here. I've seen one here before. I think I've seen one. I've seen one actually at Ngala, not too far from here, which was north of us but I haven't seen anything other. Oh, it's, you know what it is? That dust is that herd of buffalo that have come to the water. So let's go back across there. So Joey, one wattled lapwing. They're more, they need kind of wetter areas normally. What have you got, Jeandre? Impala in the shade. Good grief, our cup runneth over. Much in the same way as the elephants were hiding in the shade, so the impala are hiding in the shade. Now, interestingly, this little situation here of a small group of impala on the edge of the woodland fringing a clearing is how those antelope operate in the Mara. There are very few of them, well, comparatively few of them, and they live in these tiny little herds, sort of 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 individuals, not the massive herds that you get here. I winged that fly, Jeandre, now it's dead. I am a bully, yes. Let's go and see how those buffalo are doing at the water. I think they're rolling in the mud and tossing the dust about the place. Much hyena tracks. Yeah, Liz, exactly. You say hopefully these wheat buff will mean more food to eat for the Styx pride, and I think that's exactly what will happen. Now, the reason I'm stopping quite so interestedly for these kudu is I think they probably are here, not only for the browse, but because there is an old carcass. I wonder if they haven't been eating the bones. It's the same group of kudu that were at the waterhole there. And there, the bones. Now, can you hear that? Just have a listen for 15 seconds. Absolutely nothing. Isn't that amazing? It's bleached hot to the extent that not even the birds will sing to us. I'm sure that will change as we go towards the evening. Now, while we go up and see what those buffalo are doing at the waterhole there, let's go back across to Jamie, whose lions apparently are maybe snoring. That's the amount of activity they're giving us.
Sadly, no snores emanating from our lions. They're doing a little bit of twitching every now and again, but that is pretty much that. And I'm going to leave in the next few minutes and then return to them as the sun starts to go down. And I just thought we'd spend a little bit more time in the presence of the magnificent Birmingham boys, who, I must say, look terribly dignified in sleep, except for that one who looks a little bit jowly. Is he the one with the injured... It's not the one with the injury, no. It's just the way that his lip has fallen. Looks very strange. Looks weird. Why does it look so peculiar? It's not the one with the... One of them, of course, has an injured lip that's split away to reveal his canine, but if I remember correctly, that was the top lip, not the bottom one. I think it's just the way that his mouth is stretched out over his teeth. It does look very strange, though. Otherwise, they couldn't look more comfortable as if they tried. And hello to Anne in the USA. You've been looking at, and actually we focused on one particular ball of ticks this morning that was truly revolting. And Anne was saying she's seen lots of ticks on the lions, and that there in the USA that means Lyme disease. And what kind of effect do the ticks have on our lions here? Fortunately for us, our ticks do not carry Lyme disease. We do not have a problem with Lyme disease here in South Africa, for which we are all exceptionally grateful, having been victim to many, many tick bites. throughout our lives in the bush, and we're very grateful. What they do pass on is a bacteria known as, oh, little nip movement there, a bacteria called rickettsia. There's different strains of it, commonly known as tick bite fever. Human beings get it. The lions have an incredible resistance to it. In fact, they have a resistance to most of the tick-borne diseases. They can act as a vector for other diseases like TB, but chances are the lions are, if they're going to be carriers of those diseases, are carriers already, rather than it being passed along by a tick bite. For the most part, the ticks actually don't do them any kind of major harm. If a lion loses condition and starts to feel particularly bad, whether it's through injury or through some kind of other disease, then what you'll usually find, and actually this applies to all animals, not just lions, is that their tick parasite load automatically gets much, much higher. There's lots and lots and lots of them, and they start to dehydrate that animal much quicker than they might otherwise. So essentially hastening the process, the entire process of their demise if they are injured or ill in some way. But other than that, the ticks don't have a tremendously negative effect on the animal. They're uncomfortable, they're itchy, they're often in horrible places. They tend to congregate, for example, around the animal's eyes or the more sensitive groin areas, and they always look so incredibly uncomfortable. But they're not doing any major harm. But you do sometimes look at it and just wish you could spray them with something to get rid of them. Having fallen victim to many, many tick bites, I sympathize. The flies as well are also going to start to slowly get more and more overwhelming in number. And speaking of parasites, from the external to the internal, Justin, every lion has a tapeworm or some kind of parasite in its digestive system. They are unhygienic eaters, you know, not that that's their fault, but they are not picky when it comes to the food that they eat. They eat all kinds of rotting meat. We've seen the yinkuhumas push their heads into green, slimy buffalo carcasses before. Oh, sorry, I just made myself feel a little bit ill there. So all lions have parasites. It's one of the reasons why you don't, even when a lion is anesthetized, you don't want to touch it with your bare hands. Obviously, if it's not anesthetized, please don't touch it with your bare hands because it will kill you. But if it's anesthetized, you wear gloves. Vets wear gloves whenever they deal with them because they can transmit some very, very nasty things in their saliva and through their gastric juices. Now, I've spoken about this before, but I've had the opportunity to examine lion vomit a few times. They often vomit, they often get upset stomachs, and almost invariably you will find some kind of intestinal worm or parasite. Anything from tapeworms to flatworms to, oh, it's revolting. It really, truly is. Ugh. It's so horrible. So they all do. And the same applies to leopards, hyenas. All of our predators out here will have really major intestinal worms and parasites. Lions are not fussy. None of our predators are, except perhaps cheetah. They tend to be a little bit more fussy. They generally don't scavenge, although that's probably more to do with the fact that scavenging puts them at risk of running into bigger, stronger scavengers, something like a hyena or a lion, which they'd rather avoid, which is probably more the reason why they only eat fresh kills. These boys, speaking of kills, are definitely going to be on the search for one tonight. When they were walking along this morning, we could see the flap of skin between their back legs, which immediately tells you that this is a hungry lion. I used to work with a research organization. We used to grade the different sort of stomach fullness in terms of 1 to 4, 4 being that they've swallowed a beach ball, and 1 is the opposite, which is what I would describe these lions as now. I'm going to leave them because they're not going to be doing any hunting or indeed anything over the next few moments. We'll come back to them towards the end of the sunset safari. In the meantime, let's go find out where James is off to on his afternoon stroll.
If there is nothing in the waterhole, you've got to put something in the waterhole, and in this case, that is me. And what I found in here was a butterfly, and I was trying to catch it. You can still see it over there. It's an acria, beautiful orange acria, slightly into the water here, and I've bemuddied my shoes, a bit like Jeandre did the other day, his slop. And it's... You stop. Up. No. Better? It's in here because, for the same reason that the buffalo came in here, it's because it needs to drink. And some of these butterflies, I think, probably hatched a bit early. Anyway, this pan is now being pumped again. I can see the water is trickling slowly in, and so it'll probably be full by tomorrow. The buffalo have moved off. They had moved off by the time we got here. They moved off a little bit more quickly when they saw me get out of the car. Look, Jeandre, you see? Jeandre wanted me to get into the middle of the dam and actually lie there, but I thought it might be very uncomfortable. So I didn't. Anyway, the main thing that got that started was Jeandre saying, "What's that scraggly tree over there that hasn't been eaten?" And the answer is, it is a guarri bush, which should have been obvious to both of us, just by the virtue of the fact that it's still green and on the side of a waterhole, but it has been mangled by the elephants at various stages. Alrighty, we're going to go back to 3 in a row pan, as I said, and see what we can find there. Stay open, door. Thank you. Hello, James Richard. You say, since I am the Mara expert, which is of course not true. I've been in the Mara for 2 days, so I'm hardly a Mara expert. You say, would it be possible for us to see a baobab tree, your favorite tree? No. James, it's too high up. Its altitude is almost a mile high, and that's too high up. Sorry, Jeandre. It's too high up for baobab trees. I also think it's too wet. So I'm afraid no baobab trees, but lots of very attractive what we call shepherd's bushes. I'm not sure which Boskia species it is, but there is a Boskia species there that grows in a, well, sort of on its own in the plains, and it's just beautiful and wonderful for climbing. So I shall have to do a bit more climbing of the Boskia trees there. There's an impala, which we're not going to stop for. He's in the wood. Hello, Gracie, aged 9. You say you had to tell someone today about the togolosh, and you're a bit worried perhaps that you got the story a bit mixed up. And can I tell you where it's from again? Well, the togolosh is, I think it's originally a Zulu story, Itogoloshi. And Itogoloshi was a very small man, only about 1 meter or 3'3" high. It's quite interesting. Some elephant dung being fed on by some hornbills, but also it looks like a buffalo rib. So Gracie, Itogoloshi was about 1 meter high, but also apparently he's quite nasty. He comes in the night and he will take away young children. And in order to avoid him taking away young children, what you have to do is put your bed on top of some bricks. And then because he's so short, he won't be able to get on top. So that's how you avoid being taken by Itogoloshi. This is indeed a buffalo rib. How it got here, I don't really understand. But it's not impossible that an elephant picked it up and carried it here and deposited it the same time that it deposited this. This was obviously a very large bull elephant, given the size of the bolus that came out. Now, let's see if we can't find what those hornbills were eating. It's a little couple of days in the sun before it smells any good. I don't know what the hornbills were eating. There were a couple of flies that flew out of it, but yeah, they're just tiny, tiny. Here we go. Here we go. Jeandre, try and find you one. There's some very tiny little flies. Tell me if you see any.
Flying.
No, sort of sitting, walking around on the surface. You might find one or two. Anything? I think you might have a couple of flies. So I think they're picking up those flies. Then I'll show you on my arm. There's a beetle. There's a beetle. See on my arm there, Jeandre? It's caught amongst the hairs. And that's what the hornbills will be eating. Those flies and beetles and ants and termites and things that come to feed on the elephant dung. And of course the elephant dung full of moisture. And that will be very useful for a number of animals, including Stefan Winterboer, who has been known to squeeze an elephant dung into a snail's shell and drink that. I'm not going to do the same thing. Jeandre, have you done that before? You're not squeamish about eating new things, but you haven't done that yet. Well, maybe you should. On we go. Just wonder why an elephant would have picked that up. While I think about that, Jamie's moved on from the lions on account of the fact that they were about to anaesthetize her into a coma. She's gone off to find something slightly more interesting. We're going to head towards 3 in a row pan.
I've decided that a good approach this afternoon will be to check the waterhole just to the north of the lions called Sydney's Dam, in the hope that perhaps some elephants or something similar will have decided, as it starts to get that little bit cooler, that perhaps they might come through and have a drink at one of the few remaining water sources in this particular corner. And unfortunately, it's not looking positive, is it, Brian? It's about as active as those lions were. There's a hippo, I think. I think that was a hippo. Nothing there. That's a hippo, isn't it? Or is that a mud bulge? No, it's got to be a hippo, surely. I think that's a hippo. It's about as active as those lions were. What are those dots on the right of the dam? Oh, we've got a blacksmith lapwing. Stop the presses. It's all happening here at Sydney's Dam. Oh, and 2 Egyptian geese. My goodness gracious. Well, thank goodness we came through here, Brian, or we might have missed it. Indeed. Thank goodness. Relief. And if you look really, really closely, you might even see a little wagtail wandering about, or potentially a 3-banded plover. At this distance, I can't tell. It's behind the geese. And we've got some Egyptian geese as well. It's all... Oh, and a Cape turtle dove. Telling you. It's all happening here at Sydney's Dam. It's the place to be. Now, I'm just making sure, before I make a silly statement like that and behave like a silly person, that there isn't something actually lying in the shade somewhere. But I don't think so. It's phenomenally quiet here. I mean, there's nothing on that. I sort of half expected at least a herd of something to be hanging around the edge, maybe making their way towards water. But obviously they've just well and truly eaten everything. Well done, Brian. Very well spotted. We do have something fascinating to look at, a fish eagle. Awesome. Very, very well spotted. Definitely one of the most... Ooh, can I put a fish eagle on my most beautiful 5? Or the prettiest 5? They are incredibly beautiful. And very, very striking. We often see them around the Arethusa Dam, but it's nice to see one around Sydney's. We so frequently hear them calling overhead as they fly past Juma. And I can't help but think that the fish eagles must surely be in the best condition of their lives at the moment, since as the dams have dried up, as we've seen, it's basically become like shooting fish in a barrel, except it's catching fish in a barrel. As the dam slowly shrinks, the catfish start to writhe, and the fish eagles must be having an absolute blast of a time, because they barely need to exert much in the way of effort. They just fly down and grab one and fly out again. And speaking of the life forms at Sydney's Dam and creatures that must be having a good time, although crocs I don't think would fall under that list, James Dugan, you were wondering whether or not the crocs that were in this dam, and if I remember correctly there were at least 3 little ones at Sydney's Dam at one point, whether or not they would still be around. I'm going to guess and say probably. I'm also going to take my foot off the brakes, so when the camera jerks, it's not Brian, it is me. I just forgot to do that and my calf was starting to cramp. I would guess they're here somewhere. And the reason I say that is it's quite, not an impossibly long way, but it's quite a long way towards the next big dam. And since this is one of the few remaining water sources, in fact, this is probably, I'm just trying to think, this is probably the biggest dam that remains. Must be, yeah. In terms of our traverse area, I think chances are the crocs are going to have stuck around a little bit. Of course, I dream of the day one day of seeing one of those massive Nile crocodiles coming through. But those little crocodiles, just like this fish eagle, would be feeding off the tilapia and the barbel, or the catfish. The word barbel is such a South African, it sounds so South African, barbel, with our accent and our inability to distinguish between different vowels. Look at this motleyed fish eagle, it is a juvenile. I was thinking that, or perhaps not a juvenile, a sub-adult. It's well on its way to getting its adult plumage, but that's why it's got that motley brown all over the front and all over its chest and around its eye. So like all birds of prey, the juveniles are a sort of an indistinct brown color, and then their plumage slowly starts to change over the course of several years. In some cases up to 7 or 8 years. Sorry, just listening to the Game Drive channel as well. Poor Rexon has been desperately trying to track down the lionesses. Come on, Fish Eagle, are you going to catch something for us? Give us a demonstration of your skills. I don't think so. I think this fish eagle's settled in for the long wait. While we leave the incredibly active, full of action Sydney's Dam, let's go and have a look at a yellow-throated Petronia.
Look at that, everybody. This is the best sighting of a yellow-throated Petronia that I think I've ever had. And mainly because
no, I don't think it's going to do
there
though.
is actually
kind of just
yellow
looking
throat
at its navel.
You can see on that one there specifically, because they don't often have the yellow throat. Sometimes it is completely invisible. It used to be known as the yellow-throated sparrow. Isn't that nice? And you can see why it was known as a sparrow. It's part of the sparrow family. It looks like a sparrow. The most obvious feature of it is that very white eye stripe, and not the yellow throat. The yellow throat actually isn't. Rather brilliant. Jeandre, are you overwhelmed with excitement? Can you barely contain yourself? I know it's very difficult, but you're doing very well at holding it together as we behold the magnificence of the yellow-throated Petronia. Why are you zooming out of the yellow-throated Petronia?
To provide setting context.
I see. Very good. I'm just worried we might lose the yellow-throated Petronia. And here's an interesting one that you can use it as an identifier from if you just happen to see it. It walks, it does not hop like the other sparrows do. Isn't that nice? I find that quite interesting. Now, if only we can get that one to move a bit, we'll be able to see if it walks or hops. Go on. Move. There we are. Walk. That's it. Walkies. Walkies. Heel. Walkies. Good. Walkies. Walkies. Come on. There we are. Don't run, just walk. But you can see it is not a hopper like a sparrow is. That's fascinating. I mean, I must confess, I don't think you could confuse the yellow-throated petronia for anything else once you've had a view of it like this. But look at them, they're both waddling about the place. They really are not hoppers at all. I think that's amazing. And also, you may hear that the excitement in my voice is slightly elevated by the fact that the light is finally starting to soften as the sun heads towards the west. We're just about at 3 in a row pan, so let's go up here and have a look. Perhaps some more interesting birds on the way. Jeandre, are you terribly impressed that I spotted the yellow-throated petronia? Yes, you may have heard his response there, everybody. It went as follows. Sounds like a slightly nauseous goat. Quite amazing. There's not a thing drinking at this pan. Oh, come on now, there must be something here. Maybe quarantine is here. There's a slender mongoose, Jeandre. Just on the edge there. Can you see it? Well spotted. Look at that, going down into his hole. Well, let's just wait here and see if he doesn't emerge, bearing a snake perhaps. A Mozambican spitting cobra, a junior black mamba, little African rock python maybe. Alternatively, he might just be going in there to have a chill session. Right, possibly the latter. I was just trying to buy some time, hoping something would arrive at the water while we were doing that. I'm absolutely gobsmacked that there isn't an elephant here. Hello, Brian. You say your dog now wants to go walkies. Will I take him? Brian, it very much depends on what kind of dog he is. So if you let me know, I will then let you know if I'm prepared to take him for a walk or not. A drinking dove. Well, that's not quite an elephant, Jeandre, but it will have to do. What Jeandre meant to say was a dove thinking about drinking. Now in two minds. Brian, I'm just also not sure that walking your dog around where I currently live is a particularly good idea, but you know, if you sign an indemnity for the fellow, I'll take him for a walk. As long as he's not a Pekingese or something like that. As long as he's not a dog that is cunning, or a rat cunningly disguised as a dog. I'm not a fan of the rat-like canine. That is the mud that was on my shoe. You may notice that I'm still trying to buy time, Jeandre, hoping something will come here and have something to drink. You know, I wasn't very good with clay at school, Jeandre. I once made a beer glass for my father out of clay. Unfortunately, it didn't hold liquid, so it wasn't very effective. The very kind art teacher's report said at the end of term, his work lacks finish, which I thought was rather kind, given that I didn't think it had a beginning, let alone a finish. Thought I might have seen something on the termite mound there, but I didn't. No, nothing. Okay, what we're going to do from here is we're going to head down onto the southern boundary of Cheetah Plains, and we're going to head all the way then across to the western side and see if we can't see something along there. While we do that, Jamie is in the middle of a dressage test.
Our dressage is still continuing. I'm gonna reposition. I know we've got the zebra here, but this one poor zebra is doing something so interesting. So while we were watching it, it was standing quite happily, minding its own business, and then something very clearly bit it. Now what often happens is they get larvae of a certain type of insect, blowfly larvae, that get laid in their nostrils, which is why you often see them going poof, poof, poof. But whatever happened to this poor... Okay, no, he's really not. He's not having it. He's just still galloping off down the road. And I don't want to separate it any further from the rest of its group. That's very cool. Anyway, something clearly bit this poor zebra in the ear, and it started bucking and kicking and then dashing past us. Terribly disgruntled. Shame. So back to our conversation about ectoparasites. Awesome view. A zebra silhouette disappearing off along the road. It looks like it's walking in one spot. Doesn't seem to get any further away. Oh, that's cool. And off the road. Shame, poor zebra. Okay, let's see if I can't get a view of the rest of its herd now that it's disappeared. Most of them are on Buffle's Hook. We might be able to go and catch up with that zebra if we can't get a view of these guys. This is where Vula disappeared to first thing this morning. We just missed out on seeing him. How's that, Brian? Are you okay there? Perfect. Here we go, standing in the typical zebra pose. Oh my goodness, lady on the right. Oh, that poor zebra. She couldn't be more pregnant if she tried. Sorry, that doesn't make any sense. That's the most ridiculous statement I think I've ever said. But look how round she is. She is bulging out towards the side. And zebra are always round. They're always a little bit barrel-shaped. But this one, I mean, really. That could only be a baby zebra that is about to pop out. And what I was going to say was standing in the typical zebra pose. She's scratching underneath her chin there, which is side to side and head to bottom. And it's the perfect way of keeping an eye on what's happening on the other side and behind each other. So essentially watching each other's back and at the same time using their tails to swish away the flies from the face of the other zebra. So it's the perfect pose for them. And those of you who are very keen-eyed might have spotted some impala moving around at the back as well. Also provides a nice comfortable chin rest and the odd chin scratch if you're feeling that way inclined. Very common to see mothers and foals standing in this way. You might find that the zebra on the left is the adult offspring of the female on the right. She looks so uncomfortable. One thing that we have been, James has been very fortunate enough to witness was a live zebra birth. And there you go, Tasha. You were wondering about whether I've ever seen a zebra giving birth and what sign they give. So, Tasha, when was it, Brian? It was with Dave, and it must have been about 3, 4... Well, there we go. It was on the 4th of March. It was the day after my birthday. So Zebra and I nearly shared a birthday. On the 4th of March, James got to see a zebra mare giving birth to a foal. It all unfolded live, and it was absolutely incredible. So in terms of what sign they give, those of you who are familiar with horses will know that they start to get a little bit uncomfortable, a little bit antsy, often standing up, lying down, standing up, lying down, standing up, lying down, those sorts of levels of discomfort. And then, of course, as soon as the water breaks, then you will know exactly what is going on. I've never seen a zebra give birth. I've seen a wildebeest give birth, and I've seen a couple of antelope species, but never, well, I say a couple, I've seen impala give birth, but I have never ever seen a zebra give birth. I can only imagine that they're very, very similar to horses, and those of you with horses or familiar with horses will know exactly how that process unfolds. Beautiful. That would definitely be something that I would absolutely love to witness. What have you seen give birth, Brian? Wildebeest.
Yeah.
Wildebeest. We've got to, as soon as spring starts to arrive, we are of course in spring, we have a very, very good chance of a couple of live impala births. Well, hopefully we've got a chance of live impala birth. Generally, the one thing I will say that was interesting about James's, the one thing, obviously there were lots of interesting things about James's zebra birth. The one thing that was very interesting was the fact that she gave birth at night, or going into the evening. And typically you'll find that the antelope and the general game species will give birth first thing in the morning rather than late at night, because then it means that essentially their little ones have got a few crucial hours to get their legs under control, to stand up, to be less wobbly, to be able to run before the time of day when the predators become their most active. So it's more common for an animal to give birth in the morning rather than the evening. But whether or not that is the case with zebra, it wasn't the case with James's live zebra birth. There's a couple of things I really want to see. A live elephant birth is really high up there on my list of things I would love to see. Must be absolutely extraordinary. Bye-bye, zebbies. And I'm with you, Shamsun. I agree completely. We should spend a little bit, Shamsun says we should spend a bit more time with zebra and increase the chance of seeing a live zebra birth. Sorry, excuse me. I don't think that's a bad idea at all. And with a pregnant, if we were to see any kind of sign of discomfort from the female, we probably would. I haven't managed to have a really good zebra sighting recently. They've all been a little bit too far away. Those ones are on Buffelshoek, so we can't go any closer to them. But it is always incredibly enjoyable spending time. We've been spoiled recently with the big cat sightings, but of course it's not just about the big cats. And spending time with all of the animals can lead to some truly fascinating sightings and behavior that you wouldn't necessarily have expected. I'm on the lookout for elephants. I would like a nice elephant sighting for my afternoon. And hello to Velma. I'm so sorry I just missed out on your visit. I was on holiday, but I did hear wonderful things about it. Now, Velma, you wanted to know, with the lack of grass, would it affect the foal's health? Yes, probably. Especially for zebra, they are bulk grazers. They don't really feed on much else. So they're going to be ones that really start to struggle the longer and longer the rains take. So yes, I think it's going to be very hard on Mom. It's going to be very hard on the foal. She's going to somehow have to sustain herself and manage to produce enough or provide the resources for lactation. I don't know how she's going to manage that. So yes, it will be hard for Mom and hard for the foal. It will definitely have an impact on the foal's health and the foal's growth. While I make my way to whatever remains of Buffelshoek Hook Dam on the subject of our drought, let's go back across to James and find out how his explorations of the Great Plains of the Cheetah is going.
We have emerged from the Great Plains, everybody, and we are coming towards what is known, ironically, as Djuma Dam, where I first and last saw the Styx cubbies. Now, I believe the two Styx lionesses have been found quite close to Annette's, which is the border on which this dam lies, and so we might be very lucky to find them at the dam here. I have got a nasty feeling. I just see another car there that I wasn't expecting to see. Oh dear. And my phone is not locating me at the moment. I think we're okay here. I'm pretty sure that's Cheetah Plains Lodge up there. Come on now, find me. This isn't. Oh, good. Oh, just okay. Kirsten's got a GPS going. I'm not on Cheetah Plains. I'm absolutely not on Cheetah Plains. This is where we are, everybody. Look. That's the border over there. We want to be at the dam there. We've come across the way. We shouldn't be here. We need to go back that way. If I go forward and turn right, no, that's not going to work either. Yes, now, a very salient point made by Kirsten. RJ, you were asking if we get lost. Yes, we do sometimes get lost, RJ. Here's the cut line. That is the cut line. Okay. I suppose, while it's all very well that I take you into my confidence as I did this podcast, which means it's possibly a little bit too public. We're okay now. Me? No, I've just come from... Yeah, no. I'm just practicing what I'm going to say when I come across someone from Chitwa. A comment from Graham Waddington saying, "Hello James, I am watching." We're okay now. This is the perfect time for those crickets, Jeandre, don't you think? Yes, yes, indeed. Indeed. Of all the times that could have happened to me, I choose the day that His Eminence Graham Wallington has chosen to watch the internet show. Right. Try and let the adrenaline flush coursing through my body dissipate. I can't bring myself to even look at the lens anymore, you see, because I'll be looking my boss in the eye. Thank you, Mind Warp. Yes, I did. You say, didn't I say how hard it was to get lost? I don't know that I said it was very hard to get lost. I may have said it's impossible to get lost. Yes, yes. I wasn't lost so much as just off-piste. I mean, and Kirsten seemed to think I was perfectly issues up. I can't be blamed. Jeandre, you shut up or I'll put you in a zizzy bush. Dreadfully awkward. Really awkward. Okay, here we go. We're okay now. Let's just forget it happened. Okay, John, we'll just forget. Okay, thanks. Could everybody please... Exactly. Forget what? Yes. Graham says he's glad I wasn't on Mala Mala or Londolozi. I too am glad I wasn't on Mala Mala or Londolozi. Certainly the latter would have meant that I'd crossed 3 or 4 properties by mistake without noticing. And that, ladies and gentlemen, MJ especially, would mean that I had seriously lost my mind. Right, let me find something biological to show you, which might be of slightly more interest than my disappearing off-piste. Perhaps this very large termite mound will give us something interesting to look at. Oh, Carol in New York, you say, or Karen in New York, you say, what penalty could there be for going onto or being caught on another reserve? Normally it's a firing squad at dawn, Carol. Luckily we avoided that, but I did see another car coming towards us, and you know, had I been caught, you know, if they'd been particularly lenient, perhaps 50 lashes, but if not, then possibly a firing squad. No, they would have been, I mean, 9 times out of, in fact, almost 99 times out of 100, if somebody's made a mistake like that, they really won't react at all. They will just say, you seem to be slightly off-piste, chum. Would you like to go back? At which point you say, oh, I'm so sorry. Now, here's a very large community nest spider's web. Now, what I want to see, I know you've seen many of these, everyone, or most of you have. There are some new viewers. Dana, you're one of them. I'm just going to take a piece of it out. Now, I know to many of you who are perhaps arachnophobic, if you are an arachnophobe, just imagine doing what I'm going to do now. Oh. I'm just going to take a little piece of it out because I don't think there's too much activity here. And I'm going to bring it to you. Yeah, this one looks like it's fairly unoccupied. I've never thought of that, actually. I mean, the thought of doing that for somebody who's arachnophobic would be utterly horrific. And there you can see how amazingly fine it is. Yes?
Hold it up closer to the lens.
Ah, there we are. Nice. Now, there are no spiders in it, and the little female spiders that make the web, I think, are quite possibly either in the middle of it, or they go dormant for the winter, or even die during the winter time. And then their eggs, the little spiderlings, which I always think is quite a nice name for something that gives such terror to so many people, the little spiderlings will hatch and continue the next generation as the summer comes, because what they are dependent on, of course, is insects falling or flying into it. They don't go out and hunt themselves, and it's not exactly, well, it's like an orb web, basically. It catches flying insects, and if there aren't any flying insects, well, you know, times get a little bit lean, as they might for me. I'm fined for going off-piste. Don't you think that Graham should have to warn us if he's watching from the beginning? I think he should. I think he should have to say, I am watching today, please behave. I'm not sure I would have done half the things I did today if I'd known he'd been watching. Right, as Kirsten says, I should now link across to Jamie Patterson, who always behaves.
Well, I mean, I would hate to disappoint at this point. We've arrived at Buffelshoek Dam, or what's left of Buffelshoek Dam. It's not even Buffelshoek mud anymore. And there's absolutely nothing here. No water, no mud, just dried cracks in the earth. That's quite scary. I don't think I've been back to Buffelshoek Dam in quite a considerable period of time. I had heard it was dry. It is very dry. Right, well, in that case, we'll carry on. Since all is silent. Now, not much has changed since I last saw you. The zebra moved further. Well, we moved off away from the zebra. They looked like they were going to go further into Buffelshoek. And it seems as though all of the animals are hiding from the afternoon heat in whatever shade they can find. Playing hard to get this afternoon. I'm slowly making my way back in the direction of those Birmingham boys. As it starts to get a little bit cooler, hopefully they will decide to get up and moving, and perhaps even give us a little bit of an indication as to where the Nkuhumas are hiding. We know they're here. They are somewhere on this property. It's just a matter of working out exactly where it is they've gone. Their tracks are all over the show. I know that Rexon's been working very, very hard this afternoon to try and track them down. Unfortunately, he hasn't had any success, and neither have we. And a very warm welcome, as always, to Annie in British Columbia. It's lovely to have you on board. And you've asked a very good question, because we've spoken a lot about the fact that this drought situation is going to have a tremendously negative effect on the prey species, but not so much on the predators. In fact, for the predators, it's going to be a time of plenty. But obviously, that comes with a limit, and you want to know, well, how long will it be until the deteriorating health and numbers of the prey species impacts the predators? A long time. So the number of prey species, if you could plot a graph, kind of will go like this, and the predators will also do that, but much, much later on, so a couple of years down the line. So for them, they're just going to keep, as animals start to die of either dehydration or most likely starvation, the predators are going to keep scavenging, and they're going to continue to scavenge and scavenge until there's nothing left for them to scavenge. And again, also for hunting as well, it's so much easier for them because the prey has to go to certain water holes. And I would suggest that it's only towards when we start seeing proper rain again and an abundance of greenery that the predators will actually start to have a little bit of an impact in terms of their hunting ability, because then the prey will be more widely distributed and it'll be harder for them to find food. And so you'll only get that knock-on effect probably years later in terms of the impact that it has on the predators. That being said, it depends upon other things as well. There's other factors to consider as well. That's a basic idea. But diseases are also going to start to play a role. The more unhealthy the animals, the worse the condition that they're in, the easier the diseases will spread. And we could well get outbreaks of things like anthrax. We could also get outbreaks of rabies, distemper, other diseases like that that flourish when there is a dip in the health of the general animal population. So that is something to look out for as well over the next few months, not to be too depressing and morbid about it all. The predators, I think, though, are going to generally have a field day. And we're just talking about it and saying that if it continues like this, we're going to have some enormous predators wandering about. They're going to be positively round all the time. And I noticed it when we went to the Kruger National Park in March, which it's the driest I've ever seen the Kruger. I can only imagine what it looks like now, presumably much like this. And we drove past probably 2 dead elephants and about maybe 5 or 6 dead buffalo. And every time we saw a hyena, it had a belly out here. Like whenever we see our hyena clan, when they've been feeding with those enormous, almost like they've swallowed beach balls, they were all looking incredibly fat and healthy. And it's one of the things that will be good for our current set of baby predators. We've got lion cubs everywhere. That's going to be, it's a time of plenty for them. It's a good time for them to have been born. Our leopards as well, and most definitely our hyenas if they ever decide to return to us, which at some point I'm really hoping they might do. There has been an increase, speaking of hyenas, there has been an increase in hyena activity. I don't know if that means they're going to come back to us with their den sites. They have definitely been denning in the Manuleti or around the Manuleti. They might be slowly moving back further to the south, or they might just be patrolling their territory as they would normally do. I was hoping for some elephants this afternoon, but they have evaded me. On the other hand, James Henry has been much more fortunate and has managed to find some.
Indeed, we have, everybody, much more successful, well, very sort of on our last sort of approach here at Cheetah Plains. Beautiful elephant sighting going on right next to the car. And she's just feeding on the last bits of Combretum calinum, or the variable bush willow, and you can see beautifully there how she's taken off those little bits of bark. And as Jeandre was saying to me, surely there's lots of bark still available. But then as he correctly answered his own question, he said, yes, but obviously it's only one part of their diet. You know, they need such a wide and varied diet that, you know, they need to, there are lots of different things they want to eat. And so I think that they were, for example, heading off east into the Kruger yesterday. And I'm sure that there are patches there that they know they need to go to get certain kinds of plants. Jeandre, before you go in on her, can I ask you to just slip to the left a little bit onto where the little one's been eating? And you can see the little one not quite strong enough yet to break the branch off, but just left it in situ and kind of chewed the bark off while it was there. Now, that little elephant is probably about 20 meters from it. Us, his mother, about 8 meters from us. 8 meters, oh, that's a nice shot. 8 meters, about 24 or 25 feet or so. 5.9 meters on the focus mark. Thank you, Jeandre. You may be quiet now. Now, we're not going to follow her because coming from the other side is a large cow there. Well, there was the sun. I'm not a large cow. I'm a large idiot. But there is the large cow there. And I think you'll find that that big cow is the matriarch. She's noticeably bigger than the others and therefore probably older. And I think she will be instructing this crew on where to go. You can see she's got a ripped ear, speaking of years of experience living here. And you know what we haven't spoken about, everyone? We haven't spoken about the great elephant census that has just been completed. I'm just going to back up a little bit. Great Elephant Census took into account basically all of the habitat in Africa where elephants now live. And it showed up some fairly startling results, and I've yet to wade through the entire thing. But some of the depressing things were that in only 3 countries, Botswana, South Africa, and I think the other was Zimbabwe, strangely enough, have elephants managed to maintain or increase their population. South Africa, they've gone up. Botswana, they've absolutely gone up. Zimbabwe, they've maintained, sort of. Kenya, Tanzania, all of those other iconic parts of Africa where elephants exist, Zambia, Uganda, they've all lost many, many elephants over the last 10 years or so. And in Tanzania, 60% loss. So we don't really know why that is. Let's have a look at these ones. But here in South Africa, they are much safer, and they seem to be thriving here in the Kruger Park. Despite the fact that there is a drought going, they're all doing okay. And you can see the light has just changed completely from when we started this drive. That burnt out white colour has been turned to a gorgeous orange. And as we know, Jeandre, the combination of gold and grey, just very lovely indeed. Still, unfortunately, scarred by the thought that our boss watched me go off piste there. Hello, Justin. Just listen carefully. There was a lovely sound there of the elephant speaking, and if you say, if I could be the first human being to understand what elephants say, what would I want to say to them? Or what would I want to ask them? You know what I would do? As with any kind of culture that has an oral tradition as opposed to a written tradition, I'd love to ask the oldest ones here what it was like when they were young, and what the changes have been like, and how things have changed. And then I would also ask them, that would probably be the second thing I asked them. Justin, the first thing I'd ask them is, what do you think of people? When you see us, what do you think? Do you think terror, fear, predators? Do you think, what a bunch of idiots? Do you think, I would just be fascinated to know what on earth those wizened eyes consider when they look at us. And just a breeze blowing out of the northwest again. Strange, I think, strange wind. And the reason the light has been diffused so beautifully now is that there's a lot of smoke and dust in the western horizon from veld fires or forest fires, and dust blown up by the wind. Totally normal for this time of year. They just look like they've got stories to tell, don't you think, Justin? I suppose it's got something to do with the wrinkliness of their skin that makes them look like they've got something wise and interesting to tell us. Even the young ones like that. That's probably roughly a 10-year-old cow. In fact, probably a 10-year-old bull. Difficult to tell before they hit puberty, but you can see the little tusks pointing outwards, which is sometimes indicative of a little bull. And now he's standing in the middle of a strychnos thicket, in black monkey orange thicket. We'll just try for one more look. I'm just going to go a little bit closer here. Now, I was saying that I thought the elephants were looking pretty ropey. Some have certainly looked a bit ropey, but these guys look fine. Their hips are not sticking out. That cow over there is absolutely enormous. The big matriarch. Let's see if we can get a look at her. I don't want to be complacent about getting too close to them, because we are very close now. So I'm just going to ease through here. I don't want to block them off or make them feel threatened. I just want you to have a look at this very large animal. I'm just going to stop there. She's huge. I think she stands about 9 feet at the shoulder. That is very big for a cow. No, that's a substantial cow. I don't know how many of you have watched the Game of Thrones, but that is the Brian of Tarth, if you like, of the elephant world. Jeandre didn't get my joke because he hasn't watched it. Anyway, she's a fairly formidable woman in the Game of Thrones. And then just to the left of us, right close by here, some little elephants. I'm going to take a picture of one, Jeandre.
Can you see it?
I can't. No, you can't see my picture. Don't be silly. It's a classic. Much Strychnos madagascarensis in it. You see the sticky outy tusks there I was talking about? Hello RJ, an interesting one you say. Very strange that they call them cows and bulls even though they look nothing like an actual cow. Remember, the animal, when I say cow, you're obviously thinking of your garden variety Friesland that produces the milk you have with your cereal in the mornings. It's actually, I mean, the term for those animals are cattle. And we refer to male cattle as cows and male, at least, no we don't. We refer to male cattle as bulls and female cattle as bulls in the same way that we refer to male buffalo as bulls and female buffalo as cows. And so it's not actually, cow and bull is not a designation of cattle. It's a designation of a number of different animals, including whales, for example. We'd call a bull whale and a cow whale. Not sure the same applies to dolphins. Does the same apply to dolphins, Jeandre? No, not so much. He does that. I don't know what that means, but I think it means no.
I guess to do with the size.
Yeah. I think it has got to do with the size, yeah. So the smallest animal out here that's known as a bull is a nyala, and you can call a nyala female a ewe or a cow, but anything smaller than that is a ewe and a ram, and then a lamb for the youngster. And if you've got a bull and a cow, male and female, then the youngster is a calf. And that's the same for whales. And here we go, we've just had an answer from Kirsten McClellan Smithereen saying that a dolphin is in fact a bull and a cow and a calf. So just to be clear again, RJ, cattle, the designation cow and bull is just what we've come to know them as, but it's actually just a way of saying male and female. Shall we have another look at this rather confiding young bull here? Son of Brian. Which will not be funny to you unless you've seen the show. He's very sweet, isn't he? I might have to take another picture of him, Jeandre. That was a hopeless one. It's blurred. All right, well, as they disappear off there, we'll turn around and head back towards Djuma